sending private planes to pick up 8,000 Caucasian South African refugees when we're kicking people out that are in the middle of their immigration proceedings here in the US now. Literally having people show up for their final steps of their immigration process and having them arrested, detained, and deported. Doesn't make any sense to me.
When I first laid eyes on these South Africans coming over here, I said, wait a minute. I ain't never seen an obese South African before. Anyway. I'm serious. When white America get through with these refugees, I hope somebody tell these people that America gonna turn them every which way but loose. These people going back home, y'all. They will not stay here long term. America is ghetto as fuck, and they don't care. Just looking out of the window. They get through with these people, this man gonna be skin and bones, bones and skin.
Well, aren't these just the healthiest looking refugees I've ever seen? The most nourished, the most well kept, cleanest, most well-dressed refugees I've ever seen. I've never seen such stunningly healthy, good-looking refugees in my life. Thank God America offered them refuge from South Africa. Thank God. They look like they could not have even stood another day there. Thank God.
Why do we have to take these people? Why are they our problem? They're Dutch. They should get sent back to the Netherlands where they belong. I don't want to have to learn how to speak Dutch just so I can order a taco. Look at what they did in South Africa. These are bad hombres. The only job they know how to do is owning the farms that their great-grandparents stole.
So I want to know, will these colonizer descendants that were living in South Africa, the Afrikaners and the Boers, be reclassified to African Americans now that they're refugees over here? This is one of my biggest problems with that misnomer, is that it's too vague. It's not specific. There's no specificity with that term, African American. Elon Musk is an African American. So I really feel like we should retire the term African American. Let's hang it up in the Smithsonian. Let's hang it up, put it up somewhere.
It's not okay to say, as an American citizen, that I don't want Afrikaners from South Africa who claim they're being discriminated against, which is fun considering the legacy of colonialism and apartheid that they've participated in for decades and decades. But I think it's hysterical that I can't say that I don't want them here in the U.S. I don't want them here in the U.S. I see all kinds of anti-immigrant stuff here, but it's interesting because the anti-immigrant stuff is an anti-white immigrant, which is probably the difference maker. But yeah, I'm not allowed to say that I don't want these race bigot, shithead, Dutch, colonialist bullshitters in my country, because I don't.
The self-proclaimed, oppressed and persecuted white South Africans have fled South Africa, claiming white genocide and white persecution. Utter nonsense. There is no white genocide. There is no white persecution. What there is white accountability. And white people, some white people in South Africa, do not want to be held accountable for what the system that has benefited them for decades, if not centuries.
So the first group of white South Africans have landed in the United States as refugees, and the reactions online are both hilarious and disturbing. Many Americans, black and white, are asking how are they supposed to refer to them. Others are joking about how these refugees look too healthy, too clean, too educated, too wealthy to match what people usually expect when they hear the word refugee. And that's the first red flag. These people do not look like they are running from danger or oppression. They are not fleeing war or genocide. They are not starving, nor are they homeless. These are people who own land that was stolen from black South Africans during colonization and apartheid, land that they still occupy to this day, benefiting from generations of racial privilege in South Africa. Yet, somehow, they are being accepted into the United States as if they are the most vulnerable people on earth. This is happening while Donald Trump is pushing hard to deport black and brown immigrants. He's targeting people from Central and South America. He's deporting Africans. He's even going after immigrants who are in the process of getting legal status. Some of them have families there. Some have jobs. Some have lived in the US for years. And now their lives are being torn apart. But When it comes to white South Africans, people who come from a country where they have historically been the oppressors, not the oppressed, they are being welcomed with open arms. If this isn't racial discrimination, then what is it?
So an interesting thing happened today. In the midst of a very, very hardcore immigration policy where Trump is sending deputized ICE agents roaming the streets, not with any badges, not with any identification, sometimes wearing masks, ripping people off the street. It's that hardcore that they're doing everything they can to rid this country of illegal immigrants. Also, people who are actually a protected status are still getting taken out of this country and deported, and their protection status has been revoked. So in the midst of this very hardcore immigration policy, something interesting happened today. 59 white South Africans were granted refugee status, and they landed today in Washington, D.C. According to the administration, they were being persecuted in South Africa, and they had to flee. And so in the midst of this very hardcore immigration push, they were welcomed with open arms. Now, why, oh why, would that be? And what were the South Africans fleeing from? What could it be? So they are undoing years and years and decades of racist policies in South Africa, apartheid. And the white South Africans who came over here had to flee because they didn't like the new anti-racist laws in South Africa. That's not fleeing the country because you are in physical danger. That's called, I like the old racist policies. So I'm interested to hear MAG Nation on this topic. You guys have been so hardcore that not only are illegal immigrants not allowed in here, even people who are not criminals, who are getting swept up, people who have been protected in a protected class are being swept up. Well, they shouldn't be here. You know, when people who have been brought here when they were 4 years old and they're driving in the car and they make a wrong turn, they are sent and deported. A student who has a student visa puts an op-ed in the paper criticizing the government. They are threatened and almost deported. If it wasn't for the judges, there'd be so many other people already out of here who are not criminals. So this whole thing, we know that's not what this is about. Okay, so MAGA Nation, how do you justify bringing these refugees from South Africa in here? Like, what's your justification? Be interested to hear.
So listen, before I go to sleep, I need to tell you guys this, okay? So I chatted with someone from South Africa who is Afrikaner today, and who is going to be applying to come to the United States. And she was trying to explain her plight because she was seeing that a lot of people do not want Afrikaners over here as refugees. Okay, now I'm gonna strictly say that they don't want Afrikaners. We don't want Afrikaners over here as refugees with refugee status. Okay, so she continues to explain herself, and she does not mention anything about genocide. She doesn't mention anything about someone taking her land from her. She doesn't mention any of that as to the reason why she plans on coming to America with her children. This is the reason that she gave, which is not a qualification for a refugee status. Okay, she said that she couldn't find a job. Not only did she say she couldn't find a job, but she said she couldn't find a job because of her race. She believes she couldn't find a job because of her race. And she also believed that her children did not have a future in South Africa. That doesn't qualify to be a refugee. That honestly does not. Do you know how many people in the United States of America can't find work? Do you know how many people just lost their jobs in the United States of America because of this administration? I mean, do they have refugee status? Can they fly anywhere and be like, oh, okay, well then, give me food, clothing, shelter, and everything, and your government needs to pay for it because we're refugees because we can't find a job here in the United States of America. Now, I'm not gonna lie. She was like, I don't have anything against my people in South Africa, nor do I, and I'm not racist. I'm just Afrikaner, and I just want to find a job. But I said, but you're not a refugee. Not because not because you can't find a job. Simply because you can't find a job, you think you're a refugee? If that's the case, you know what I'm saying? That doesn't make you a refugee. She said nothing about any of the quote unquote genocide, any of the oh my gosh, all she said was she couldn't find a job. That's it. And the White House is allowing this.
Let's be real, these white South Africans are not being persecuted. No one is denying them access to jobs or schools. No one is burning down their houses. The South African government has not declared war on white people. In fact, they still hold a lot of economic power in the country. The land reform discussions happening in South Africa are not about revenge. They are about justice. Black South Africans want their stolen land returned. And honestly, that's fair. So the question is, why are these people being granted refugee status in America? What danger are they running from? The only thing they are afraid of is equality. They're afraid of losing privilege. They're afraid of being held accountable for the historical crimes that built their wealth. But that's not oppression. That's just the world starting to balance itself out. Meanwhile, the American government under Trump's leadership is claiming to care about legal immigration, yet turns around and creates exceptions for people who look like him. This exposes how immigration policies are often not about fairness or legality. They are about race, they are about power, and they are about preserving a certain image of what an ideal immigrant looks like. It's shocking, but not surprising. Let's also talk about the hypocrisy. When Haitians try to come to America fleeing real undeniable crises, earthquakes, gang violence, poverty, they are met with horses and whips at the border. They are deported on the spot. When Africans seek asylum after escaping war zones, they are told their access don't qualify. When Mexicans and Central Americans flee drug cartels and political corruption, they are thrown into detention centers. But when a white South African says, I'm afraid my farm might get taken, suddenly America is listening. Suddenly there is compassion. Suddenly refugee status is available. I want to make it clear, no one is saying all white South Africans are bad people, but we cannot ignore the historical and social context. Their ancestors benefited directly from a system that brutally oppressed Black South Africans. That wealth was passed down through generations, and now the justice is being demanded. When the descendants of the oppressed are saying, we want what was taken from us, these people are acting like victims. It's also important to remember that South Africa is not a failed state. It's not under civil war. It's not a dictatorship. The people there are trying to fix the mess that apartheid left behind. And let's be honest, it's not an easy job. You cannot undo centuries of damage in just a few decades. But when white people leave the country because they no longer have all the power and then try to claim refugee status elsewhere, it's an insult to the millions of Black South Africans who still live with the legacy of poverty, displacement, and racism. And the US government is rewarding that behavior. Let's call this what it is. This is a race-based double standard. America is sending a loud and clear message. If you're Black or brown and fleeing actual danger, you're not welcome. But if you are white and claiming fear, even if it's fear of fairness, you will be fast tracked to safety. This is deeply unjust. It also raises a serious question. How are Americans supposed to respond to this? People are genuinely confused. Some are joking online, saying they don't know whether to call these people white Africans, European Africans, or just refugees with privileges. Others are pointing out how ironic it is that they are leaving South Africa claiming to be unsafe while still holding massive land and business assets back at home. It's absurd. And don't think for a second that this isn't political. Trump is using these white people to push his white replacement narrative in reverse. He's welcoming white immigrants to balance out the browning of America. It's part of a bigger strategy to keep America looking a certain way, and that way does not include people like us. This should alarm every one of us, especially those of us in the African diaspora. We know what real oppression looks like. We know what it means to be hunted, to be poor, to be silenced, to be ignored. And now we are watching a group of people with generational wealth and international privilege claim refugee status. It's insulting, it's offensive, and it's dangerous. Because if they are allowed to rewrite the definition of a refugee, then what happens to the real refugees? What happens to the people whose lives truly depend on being accepted somewhere? The stories will be drowned out by these privileged voices. This is why we must speak up. We must call it out. We must ask the tough questions. Why are these people here? Who approved their visas? What standard is being used to determine refugee status now? And why isn't that standard applied equally to all races and regions? This is not about hate. This is about justice. This is about fairness. And this is about waking up to the reality that in 2025, racism is still shaping immigration policy. So, as I wrap up this video, I want to remind everyone, stay informed, don't fall for the media spin, don't let the system play with your perception of who deserves safety and who doesn't. And to my brothers and sisters across the world, especially in Africa, please remember, the fight for equality is far from over. Anyway, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for thinking critically. And as always, stay strong, stay proud, and stay safe. Also, remember to leave a comment, subscribe, like, and share as well. And until next time, bye-bye.